Underway. As I said, from Electronic Frontiers Australia, he actually led the marches against the original internet censorship in 1996 and 1999. So, Danny Yee.
Hello everyone. It was 12 years ago that I led the first march on New South Wales Parliament House protesting net censorship legislation by the state government. And we marched again in 1999 on the offices of the then Australian Broadcasting Authority, protesting the scheme, the modifications to the Australian Broadcasting Act. Anyway, much has changed since then, but unfortunately much has not. Critics of censorship are still labelled as supporters of child abuse and child pornography, even when the proposals that they are protesting against extend to a vastly broader range of material. The government is still treating the internet like a broadcasting medium. So they're applying film classification guidelines to all internet content, even static images and text. Censorship proposals are still being pushed by middle-aged politicians who don't use the internet anymore. As someone on a forum pointed out, they're probably the last remaining demographic in Australia that doesn't use the internet, or one of the users the least. And the details of the censorship proposals are vague and the goals are completely unclear. That makes it very easy for the proponents of censorship to sort of sidestep any criticisms and waffle a lot or just avoid the questions. However, some things have changed for the better. Our ministers may not know much about the internet, but most Australians now do. In 1996, hardly anyone knew about the internet. We were kind of a freak show. Today, probably more than half Australians use the internet on a regular basis, so it's harder to pull the wool over people's eyes. Social networking, which didn't exist then, has spawned protests on a larger scale. I'm guessing we've got a bigger turnout now than we did in 1996. And I want to give a big thank you to the organisers of these rallies, because I know how much work it is to get police permits and such like. And we have support from mass organisations like Get Up and political parties that we didn't have before. And even the media is much better. There are far fewer sensationalist stories about, the internet will eat your children kind of thing. So while complacency is not worried, I'm encouraged to see so many people here today and calmly confident that we can get these proposals stopped. Okay. It's not unusual for governments to have policies that can't be implemented or which are too expensive to implement. In this case, however, we appear to have an implementation without any policy behind it. So, if you look at the trial filtering proposals that they want ISPs to sign up to, you can get a pretty good idea of what they actually want to implement. So, the mandatory filtering side of it is basically going to involve ISPs being required to block all the items on the ACMA blacklist. That's the Australian Communications and Media Authority. So that's about 1,300 items at the moment. These are URLs, not domains or IP addresses. And the government proposes to extend this to about 10,000. So the reason this blacklist is so small is that it's based on complaints. But it potentially covers a huge range of material. So I'll give you some idea of the extent of that. The content that's potentially prohibited by ACMA includes anything that is refused classification under field guidelines. Now this is not just child pornography. This includes instruction in crime, sufficiently offensive material that deals with sex or drug abuse, unpopular fetishes, and a range of other material. So, for example, Pasolini's film Salo is refused classification in Australia, even though it's legal in pretty much every other country in the Western world. The other issue here is that the application of film guidelines to static content is, there's no case studies on this. We don't know how that's going to work out, really. All X-rated content is prohibited under the ACMA scheme. That's consensual vanilla sex, pretty much, which I'm sure the speaker from the Australian Sex Party will talk about later, because that's pretty much their thing. And the censorship scheme even includes the most R-rated material, which is pretty much like anything deemed unsuitable for children. So this includes like material that addresses adult things such as suicide and marital difficulties. So I've seen like news stories saying that there are fears that this censorship scheme might extend to, quote, ordinary pornography. Well, there's no question about that. This scheme unequivocally covers ordinary pornography and a whole pile of things deemed unsuitable for children. explicit non-violent erotica is just as prohibited under the ACMA scheme as child pornography. Okay, so we know what they want to do. What they're trying to do with this, well, they claim lots of things, but we don't know. What are they trying to achieve? It's simply not possible to make the public internet safe for children, or even significantly safer, especially with a complaints-based system that doesn't even try to cover chat or online gaming or anything except web content. Issues such as, cyberbullying or stalking are just not covered by this. The other part of the clean feed proposal is for a voluntary filter that will filter all material unsuitable for children. Now, I'm a bit confused by that because the ACMA blacklist theoretically contains all R-rated content and above, which is already all material unsuitable for children. So I'm not quite clear how this is supposed to be different, except that it's not going to be complaints-driven. It will presumably be like keyword-driven or done by some automated filtering system with huge amounts of collateral damage. So this is supposedly going to be enforced on everybody, and adults will be able to opt out of it. So it seems less controversial, since preventing children from being distressed online is obviously a worthy cause, but it's still a very blunt, inflexible and expensive approach to the problem. So, a broad range of systems already exist for protecting children online. So you may have noticed that schools and libraries already run filtering software. There are filtering products available for households. There's a huge range of them, probably like hundreds. And there are already ISPs who offer filtered connections to families who don't trust their own software installs or whatever. These systems are not perfect, but they haven't failed so badly that there's any kind of crisis, unless you're one of those wowsers who want to force other people to use them. If they're too expensive or too complex to set up, that's an argument for education or possibly for subsidies. Although the previous government's exploits in this area leave something to be desired, because their filtering subsidy scheme or handout scheme apparently cost several $1,000s per person who ended up taking up the software. So you'd have to think that they'd be better off just giving everyone in Australia $50 and saying, use this for filtering software if you want it, otherwise pay for your children's dental care or something like that. The government's about to hand out thousands of dollars in stimulus checks to low-income parents. We're interested to see how many of those even contemplate spending this money on internet filtering as opposed to more essential needs, and whether the government would actually want all this money to go to Cisco routers and US filtering products anyway if the intent is to improve the Australian economy. So a single national filter system imposing one filtering scheme, or one per ISP, is vastly less flexible. If filtering is done at the backbone level, are ISPs supposed to filter content for 6-year-olds or for 15-year-olds? And even if it's configurable, what is a household with a 6-year-old and a 15-year-old supposed to do? In any event, the mandatory filtering of adult material is going to have an unexpected side effect. It's actually going to make it easier for children to access adult content, and more likely that they'll stumble over it inadvertently. This sounds kind of counterintuitive, but actually follows quite logically. If you attempt to block Australian access to ordinary pornography or X-rated content, there'll be a huge explosion in tools for bypassing filtering, and they'll be widely publicised. Similarly, online commercial porn sites currently have no incentive to do anything sneaky because their content's legal, they're hosted overseas, so the content's legal. But if you try to block their paying Australian customers problem, they'll have a commercial incentive to publish on non-standard ports, change locations regularly, cloak their content, and generally carry out other exploits to hinder filtering. All of that is going to make life really difficult for filtering software installed in schools and libraries and by parents who want filtering. So that's actually backwards. When it comes to child protection and child abuse, this proposal really isn't going to do anything at all. People swapping child pornography do so through covert channels using cryptography. They don't publish it on open websites. And child abuse is adequately covered by existing legislation and best left to the police. You may have seen some recent news stories about them busting various child abuse networks. There's no evidence that they're calling for censorship legislation to make this easier or anything. If anything, it might be a little bit too easy for them, with various laws making possession of material illegal. There's a case in New South Wales where possession of cartoon material is illegal. Someone did a parody of The Simpsons having sex, and that was apparently child pornography because cartoons are real people. Anyway, there's no